Hey guys, what's up? It's George from Phonotonic Productions. I'd just like to talk to you today about some mid-side processing following my questionnaire that I sent out. Those of you guys that did fill out the questionnaire, then thank you very much. And those that didn't, you know who you are. Right, so I've got a project here that I've been building last night. It's not a complete project, it's just something that I thought I would do for this tutorial. Okay, so let's get into what I'm actually doing there. As you can hear, it does get quite a lot louder. That is basically because I'm pseudo mastering in the session. So I'm not actually mastering the track, I'm just getting it up to 0 dBFS. Mainly that's due to the fact that you guys are listening through maybe, hopefully you're listening through studio monitors or through a good set of headphones. But I appreciate that some people will be watching the video on earbuds and stuff, just so that you can kind of hear everything really. So yeah, I really like the API compressor on the mix bus. Kind of doing not a lot with it really. So maybe half a dB gain reduction. And then second, we've got the Pro Q2, which I'm doing quite a lot of mid-side processing on that. So I mean, what I'm doing is basically shaping shaping the track into two channels, which is what you'd normally do anyway. I mean, you'd have your left and right channels, but in this instance, I'm processing the mid and the side. So now the mid signal is everything that's through the center. So in this track, it would be the kick drum, the body of the snare, the sub in the bass, pretty much everything that is mono in the track. So I'm processing that by kind of doing like a low shelf boost in the low end, not by much. I mean, I'm kind of boosting by about 1 dB there, and then I'm cutting the bottom off at 29 hertz. That's just cutting out quite a lot of rumble and basically stuff that you don't really need in your track. That's on the mono signal. Now on the stereo, I've cut it higher. I've cut it about 98.8 hertz. That's basically because low-end information in the stereo image tends to sound really horrible. It's also got a tendency to ruin the correlation of your mix or put things out of phase. I mean, if you have, say, the low end is really present in the stereo image, you kind of get this weird phasey sound, and it can take up lots of headroom in the mix as well, which you don't really need. I mean, all of the mono signal will provide all of the low end and the kick and the punch that you really need from the track. Normally I mono at kind of somewhere around 80 hertz. This one's a little bit higher, just because it's got quite a lot of bass information, and the kick is down in the sub as well. I just wanted it to kind of punch right through the middle. It's actually quite interesting, but quite a few club sound systems will actually play stuff in mono. Everyone thinks that all of the massive Avicii hits or your Kelvin Harris's or some of the big guys, their tracks sound absolutely incredible in clubs. Well, actually, they would sound even better if the club was playing it in stereo. So if you're at a festival, then obviously that's played in stereo. I mean, I know that some festivals are even doing 5.1 now with some of the Function 1 systems. But I mean, even in mono, their tracks sound absolutely incredible. And that would just be from mono compatibility checking, so referencing the track in mono compared to it in stereo. You can do that in Logic using the gain plugin. you can just basically convert the track to mono. So I mean, basically anything that you can't hear in mono is things that won't be included when they're being played in stuff like nightclubs, and through lots and lots of portable speakers. Don't support stereo. Even if they've got more than one speaker, sometimes they don't actually play in stereo, they're just dual mono. So I mean, if you listen to the track and see what disappears. So if we take all of the curves that I've just made and just turn them on and off in mono, then you'll just be hearing what the mid processing is doing. So if I turn them off and play it back in mono. So you can hear that part is, it's bringing out some of the mids, some of that really kind of gritty sort of 750 hertz sort of area, which is really good for translating onto smaller systems. It's actually quite a tricky area to get right. There's lots and lots of sort of pitfalls to EQing around this area. You can get some really buzzy sort of honky sort of sounds from EQing too much in this area. I mean, I think this is probably the biggest gain change that I'm using in the EQ. I think this is like 1.5 dB. So I'm not doing a great deal. I like to sort out things before I get to the stereo bus stage, just so I can do little things just to accentuate things that I want to hear, or tonalities that I want to hear in the music. So yeah, I mean, that's what it's doing to the mono. Now if we go back to stereo, I'll turn everything off again, and then we'll hear it A-B it. So. So it's kind of focusing it a lot more, making it kind of a lot more aggressive up in the upper mids, especially with that synth sub bass that I'm using, the kind of neuro patch. That's one that I've used all the time. It's one that I made myself in Massive. I call it Reese Witherspoon. Shay Stedford can relate to this. So yeah, that's one that I made quite a long time ago. In fact, I think Shay was in the room when I made it. Shay Stedford is an incredible lecturer and a good friend of mine from the Academy of Contemporary Music. I went and studied at the Metropolis Academy in September of last year. It was absolutely incredible. Met some great people, made some great connections, and eventually worked my way around to doing sessions at Metropolis Studios, which is obviously the biggest studio in Europe. And now I currently work for a producer that is a freelance engineer there, called Peter Dowsett, who will be featuring on my channel at some point in the near future. I will be doing an overview video of just sort of the stuff that I'm going to bring to the channel, what sort of content I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be doing some cool interviews and getting some really cool guests on the show. If we can see just now, if I put the Pro C on, I'm actually doing some mid-side compression on the mix bus. Shay, again, you're going to hate me for this because you think that it's witchcraft and it doesn't work. I mean, there's lots and lots of arguments for and against mid-side compression on the mix bus, but I like it. I think that it works. I think it's great for focusing stereo image, and also I think that it's really cool for kind of controlling your stereo image without playing around with the phase too much, which is obviously, the Pro Q2, which I'm using there. Essentially, whenever you change an EQ setting, you are changing the phase of the song. So EQs work on phase cancellation and phase manipulation. So every time you boost or cut something, you're actually changing the phase of the signal. So the least you can play around with it, the better, just for phase correlation and absolute phase. Now, mid-side compression doesn't play around with the phase of the track. All it's doing is basically controlling the dynamics or changing the dynamic processing of the mid channel versus the side channel. Now here, I'm actually not even changing the whole mix. I'm doing kind of 90 hertz to the 4.2 kilohertz range. So that's actually filtering out. It's only processing between 90 hertz and 4.2 kilohertz, which is all of the mid range of the track. So what I do with this, I mean, you can play around with different styles. The Opto seemed to work really nice for this track. You can play around with different styles of compression for doing this. I think the Pro C is extremely good for mid-side processing. Also, some of the Plugin Alliance stuff is really good. I think it's their Alpha compressor. The mastering compressor is a mid-side compressor, and it's really good as well. That thing is almost invisible though. So, I mean, if you want it for kind of an effect, or you want it to really kind of control things and make it quite obvious, then I think the Pro C is better for doing that sort of thing. So, I mean, let's listen to it on and off. We'll try it off first. So it kind of focuses all the mids and the lows as well. It really controls the lows really well. It's just an absolutely brilliant plugin, to be fair. I absolutely love the Pro C. The nice thing about it as well is that because I'm using like a band pass for the processing range, it's not actually filtering any of the sound. It's just using a band pass to kind of just so you can tell it what you want it to process and what you don't want it to process. So the nice thing is that that's the only range that it's actually touching. So all of the sub isn't getting affected by it at all. So yeah, what that means is that you can basically control just certain parts of the song that you really want to either boost or kind of accentuate, or you want to open out the image, or you know, you can control the image but without taking out all of the width, so you can kind of focus it towards mono compatibility. You should be doing that throughout the whole track, by the way. You should be making sure that everything works in mono if you want to do a commercial release, obviously. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the mid-side processing that I'm doing. I don't think I'm doing any mid-side on anything else. No, I think that's it. Can we just have a quiet round of applause for Valhalla Vintage Reverb as well, because it is almost the best reverb I've ever heard as a plugin. It's just incredible. So yeah, I use that on pretty much everything, and some Softube stuff as well. Big shout out to Softube. I'm now endorsed by Softube, which is great. I've got all of their plugins and all of them are absolutely incredible. One of my favorites is the Softube Saturation. Another one, Shay, you're not going to disagree with me there. I think it's actually brilliant. I think it's really good. Obviously, the FabFilter stuff really is kind of go-to for Mixbus. I love the FabFilter Pro, the Saturn. It's absolutely incredible. Multi-band harmonic distortion plugin. You can use it for so much. You can use it so subtly as well. I mean, I'm actually processing in mid-side with the FabFilter Saturn as well. I do lots of mid-side processing. So, I mean, I just think that it works really well. It's really great for EDM. Any style of kind of hip-hop or dance music is really good to kind of fatten the sound up and kind of just hype everything. It's really good kind of to hype things but without absolutely annihilating them, which some other saturators do, and you kind of have to run them in parallel. This thing's great because it's got mix. All of the FabFilter stuff has got mix on them, which is incredible. Obviously, oh yeah, I didn't mention that I'm actually paralleling the original mix as well. So the nice thing about this is that you've got the dry mix on Pro C as well, so you can basically parallel the whole mix bus in the same plugin. So I'm kind of using it with the dry mix with no mid-side compression is kind of sat a little bit lower down than the mix that's compressed, which is really cool. It's like a parallel effect. I'll go into that in another video. Yeah, and I will do another video on the FabFilter Saturn as well, because it is amazing. I mean, let's listen to the difference. No, not with the... I've still got Audition on. So yeah, that's pretty great. The Brainworks digital EQ, I pretty much just use this because the filters on it are extremely transparent. They don't play with the phase hardly at all. I think that it's a lot more transparent than quite a few other EQs. I know that, again, Shay really likes this EQ, uses it for mastering a lot. I'm not particularly mastering this track, I'm kind of just pseudo mastering it, so just kind of doing similar techniques that you would do in mastering, but obviously not doing it in a separate session, and not as in depth. So I mean, I'm literally just monoing off the bottom there. In fact, no, I'm just cutting off the bottom actually, 29 hertz, and literally just a small boost in the 65 hertz range. Yeah, so yeah, Brainworks are absolutely incredible as well. Then obviously the Pro L, pretty much all FabFilter plugins on my mastering or my stereo mix bus. This again is absolutely incredible limiter. You can do loads with it, and you can hardly hear it. I mean, I don't think I'm smashing the hell out of it. I think it's just hitting the transients quite hard on this. Yeah, so I mean, hitting like 3.5 dB on the transients. Like I said, I haven't actually mastered this. So I mean, if you're getting anywhere between sort of like 10 and 12 dB on your mixes before they're mastered, I mean 10 to 12 dBs RMS, then I think that you're in the right sort of range. I mean, most of the stuff these days is ridiculously high RMS. You're getting stuff in the charts that's got like 4 or 5 dBs of dynamic range. I mean, the loudness wars are a completely different topic altogether. One that I'll probably cover at some point, but I just feel that it's not, it's not anything really to talk about in this video. So, so yeah, I'm around minus 10 dB RMS. We can squeeze a bit more out of that, get it a little bit louder. I mean, it depends on what sort of sound you want to go with. Personally, for this sort of sound, I think you do really have to kind of smash the hell out of it just to be competitive with other songs, just because everything in this genre is extremely loud. So yeah, I mean, mid-side processing, I do it. I know lots of people that do it. I mean, it's all about, what you want to achieve with it. Also, there are other ways to achieve the sound that you want. It doesn't necessarily have to be with an EQ or a compressor. I mean, parallel processing is extremely good. Putting stuff, out of phase. I mean, certain things you can get away with having stuff completely out of phase, especially in electronic dance music. In fact, it's almost a sound now, whereby lots and lots of people are putting stuff that's really out of phase. In one of the new Drake, I think it's the Drake and the Throne, which is the Jay-Z and Kanye West track, there's actually like a bass tom thing that goes doo 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 doo, like that, and that's actually completely out of phase. It's pseudo stereo, so it's completely out of the stereo image. They've obviously paralleled that with a signal that isn't, so that you can still hear it in mono. But yeah, it's completely out of phase. So if you listen to it next time, it's literally at the end of each bar in the chorus, you hear this doo 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 doo. And if you listen to it with studio monitors or headphones, you will hear that it's completely out of phase. It's quite interesting actually, because that's a hip hop track, and now all of the dance production techniques are coming through to hip hop. I think that Noah Shabib is an absolutely incredible producer. I think that he's great, and he's one for kind of setting trends rather than following them. So maybe that's what it is. I mean, he's trying to, you know, bring something new to hip hop and trying to reinvent it and keep it fresh. And, you know, I think that he's doing a great job. And shout out to Drake on Views from the Sixth, incredible album again, and Noah 40, obviously. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video today, guys. This was the first one in a series of videos. Like I say, I'm going to get some cool people to do some interviews and getting some really cool guests on the show. I'm going to be doing Q&A sessions as well with anyone that needs to, you know, find out a certain technique. I will be covering sound design and synthesis on how to make stuff, you know, in Massive and get the right sound and basically be able to produce the sound that you hear in your head and trying to get it out onto, you know, into your productions. So yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, I'll be back probably in the next couple of days with a new video. If you do have any comments, or you would like, you know, to suggest topics for me to cover in the next video, then please do. And yeah, have a nice day, and cheers for watching.
Nothing gets between me and my AK.